Andy Sheahan's grandson to accept the induction here this evening, Mr. Malcolm Sheahan. Thanks for being with us tonight, Malcolm. Wonderful to have you here.
Thank you, Darren.
Representing the Sheahan family.
Thank you.
There's a resemblance.
Is there?
I think so.
It has been mentioned to me a couple of times in the past.
I think the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.
But only in respect to visual effect, Darren, yes. Nothing else.
Not in horse talent?
No, not in horse talent at all, unfortunately.
You're the eldest of the grandkids?
I'm the firstborn of Andy's grandchildren. Unfortunately, he didn't get to meet any of us, but we have some good memories provided by other members of the family.
Can you share those with us tonight as to Andy Sheahan was the man he was?
Yeah, I guess my father was the first source for me. My dad was Andy's first son, not first and only son. He had two daughters as well. But my dad used to describe him as a larrikin, as a great bloke, and as a very determined individual. But always took things with a smile and with a modicum of determination. And he liked to drink, of course, which my dad did as well. My dad was so supportive of his father that we found articles, which my dad didn't talk about very much, but we found articles where Peter Sheahan was enrolled into the Rainsman School at the age of 16. There's actually an article, I think, in the Daily News that expanded on the virtues of another Sheahan being in the industry. But unfortunately, Andy died only a matter of about a year later, and that was the end of Dad's ambition to stay in the industry. So he went into pubs instead.
An Irish ancestry in a pub.
Yes, yes. I know it's
a
very
nice
unusual.
marriage, isn't it? Yes.
Unusual, yeah.
It is, and it's of course where the Sheahans were very well known as publicans in Melbourne.
Yes.
In the time, of course, and it is said that this is where Andy may have developed his great horse skills, his great horsemanship, when he was living at one of those pubs in Melbourne.
Certainly, Darren. Well, if I turn to the Oracle, which is a West Trot magazine from 1991, there's an article in here from written by the one and only Alan Parker. Mm. And in this article, Alan, thank you, it describes Andy's antics with his brothers, two of his brothers, when they used to travel from Templestowe, from the pub, to Heidelberg. What is missing from the article, which I'm sure was deliberate because it's a little racy, Andy and his brothers, as they drove down the street, they passed another competitive pub in the town called the Finns Hotel, and more times than not, on the way to church on Sundays, the race would be on. So the boys, on occasions, would arrive at Heidelberg Catholic Church on Sunday, in a buggy, behind a horse, having driven off the road their competitors, the Finns, maybe a bit dirty and sodden and sometimes even bloodstained. But nothing a good couple of minutes in the confessional wouldn't fix for the boys. So So I'm sure that his competitive nature, as is described to me by other members of the family back in Templestowe a few years ago, that the folklore of the Sheahans racing the Finns to church on Sunday is very well renowned.
Oh, it sounds all very Irish to me,
Yeah,
that's for
very
sure.
Irish.
And a lot of the history, of course, contained in the beautifully presented books tonight, which are souvenirs of your time here at the Hall of Fame. And you can read all about Andy there. There's some of the parts there that I enjoy. I love this fact that he's a rascal.
Yes.
We know that he's a rascal, and we know that he loved having a cold one on a hot day or any other day. And
Yes.
is it true? Is this true? Can you confirm this at all? When he moved to Maylands after
Yes.
coming across and driving for Sheahan with great success, and then moving here
Yep.
from Melbourne to Perth, he set up stables down the road from the Maylands Hotel.
Correct.
And after he'd finished working those horses through the early part of the morning, mid-morning, and as soon as the front door was open, he might pop in for a quick cold one and conveniently leave the horse hitched up out the front that he'd worked that morning.
I can absolutely guarantee you, Darren, that that is true. He was Irish and he came from pub stock. Definitely true.
So he needed a quick pit stop on the way home.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, he follows in the footsteps, they tell me, of Jack Miles and the late Sheahan as well, who famously did that with Mount Eden and Jack Morris.
Indeed,
So
indeed they did.
that's what you do, I guess. Alan Parker, you've mentioned, has put so much work into
Indeed.
recreating the life of Andy here. His rise in the sport was rapid. There's no question about that. Ultimately, so was his decline, both on and off the track. You've touched upon that he passed away very, very young. The winners stopped, and before long, he'd left us at 56 years of age.
Correct.
Being a horseman in this era, it was a very tough time, very tough for horsemen. Not a lot of money around. You had to be very shrewd. You had to live by your wit. And he seemed to be one of those type of trainers.
Yeah, I think he, certainly what I've read about him and the stories that I've been told is that, you know, that edge of determination was always there. His demeanour was friendly, his attitude was larrikin-like, but I think behind that was always a very strong determination to do the best that he could for his family. He was always very well supported by his family, including my grandmother's, his wife's family, the Burt family, to the point where they helped him by purchasing horses and helping him get into the stables on Guildford Road in Maylands, which I had the great privilege of living in for the first 4 or 5 years of my life.
Malcolm, Andy was a horse and buggy man. As John Hunt said,
Yes.
he never drove a motor vehicle.
No.
He was simply a horse and buggy man. And tonight, of course, he is elevated into this very special hall. It is the Hall of Fame. Thank you for coming along and representing Andy Sheahan this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Malcolm Sheahan. And continue the applause as we now induct his grandfather, Andy Sheahan, into the WA Racing Hall of Fame.